Well, Jack, we've got this shotgun completely cleaned up and ready to put back together. I know you can do this with a blindfold on because you've told me that you can, but I want you to keep your eyes open and put it back together for us, if you will. First the receiver and then the barrels, and we'll do the fore end last. And if you would, just explain to us what you're doing when you put it back together and call out the names of the parts. So let me turn it over to you.
Okay, certainly, Ellie, thank you. Now the first thing I want to put together is the parts inside of the action. Now, to do this, I've got to hold it in a vise because I've got to compress the springs. Now, the first thing to go in is the mainsprings. Now, these are one side, you can't mix them up. One side, they are not interchangeable, they'll only fit one side. So put a bit of lubricant on them and make sure you've got the right one for the right side. Now, this is the one for the right-hand side. I'll put that spring in its slot. The next thing I'll pick up is the hammer, and in this case there's a slide which works the ejector, which fastens into the side of the hammer. Again, I'll just put a spot of oil on them. You can use any good gun oil. It's just, you don't want to put them together dry.
Now, Jack, the hammers are right hand and left hand, but you can't get those confused either.
You can't put them in the wrong side because in this case it's got a slide which works the ejection, which attaches to the hammer, and it slides in on the one side of the slide that works the ejection goes on the one side of the hammer, and there's a little recess cut in this hammer here, where there's a little extension on the spring which goes in there. Now, with a little tool I've made up out of some wood, you press the hammer into place. You've got to locate the firing pin, which is an integral part of the hammer, into its slot. Now you've got to press and turn it until you've got the firing pin in its hole. Then you can release, then find the necessary pin that secures, that holds the hammer.
Now that would be the number 2 pin?
This will be marked number 2, and these are marked number 1, 2, and 3. I've got number 2.
So that's got 2 little hash marks on it.
It's got 2 little
right
marks in the middle there, which signifies it's for this hammer pin. Now, I punch a drift here, which I move this till the oil lines up, put this through.
You're using that just as a slave?
Just as a slave pin, really. I can move this out of the way, move this back into its hole, put the other side in, the other side in, a little drop of oil on it, little drop of oil on it. That's the spring, the slide, hammer, and then the same thing, locate this in its slot. There we go. That's just about got him in place now. Hold that in the vise again, and I'm pushing this second one in. You got it in line, then push the pin up.
Yeah, this is our slave pin here.
This is a slave pin, or the drifter I used to. Now I can put the pin in, the pin in, the axis pin for these hammers. Turn it round. They are tight.
You move that pin just a little bit back here, just to move the parts.
Pin, yes. So you can get tap the vinyl bit down till it's level. Now they do protrude a little bit, just a little bit above the edge. There we go. Just a little bit proud. Now the next move is to put in the cocking. I put in the cocking levers. You could put the sears in, but I always the next thing to put the cocking levers in. Again, just give them a smear of oil. Now you can't get these in wrong usually. They're marked right and left. Now where's the other one? This is the right hand side.
And it's marked with an R.
It's marked with an R. Some are marked, sometimes the left are marked, sometimes the right is marked, and sometimes neither are marked except for a centre punch dot. So if there's no markings and there's a centre punch dot, the centre punch dot will usually be on the left hand side one. There was no set ways of marking these things. Now then,
it was the one on the left, I think. So it was.
That's right. This is the left hand one. It's the front one. It is the front one. It's marked with a one mark, or just a cut on it. Now just shove that in from left to right. This one you don't have to. You can get away without using a drift because they just you've got no. You're not compressing any springs, and they just float free. The next thing to put in is because you say to put them in later, you can put in the sear springs. Now you can't get these in the wrong side, they're left and right handed. Put those in, they just going to drop in place, or should do. There we are, that's one in, and that's the other one. Drop them in place, and just to hold them until I'll put the pins that hold them, these little screws. Now you'll find here there should be one of them should be marked. Now in this case it's the left hand side, and it's marked with a little centre punch dot. Sometimes they put a little cut on the bottom of the screw. So this one will be the left, which is, turn it over, this is the left, and that one's the right, and just screw them down but not fully tighten them. That'll do it. Now the next thing to put in is the lever work, because if you put your sears in now, it's going to get in the way of putting your lever work in. So the next thing is put the lever work in, which is, the lever work consists of the top lever, the underbolt, the tumbler which goes between the two, the top lever spring, and a pin that connects the underbolt to the tumbler. So first of all, put in the lever. It just goes in its place on the top. Turn him over. Put a bit of lubrication on it. Turn him over. Place the square on the tumbler goes through the top lever, to the top strap, I should say, and fits into the top lever. There we go. And it fits on the square. You can put the top lever pin in at this stage of the game, or leave it till later. It doesn't matter. Now, the next thing to put in is the underbolt. Lubricate it and slide that into its slot. Put the pin that connects the underbolt to the tumbler in and screw it home. Screw it up tight. There we go. The next thing to put in is the top lever spring. Now, instead of squeezing it up with pliers, an easy way of doing it is to compress the spring in the vise, and with a little piece of metal with a couple of notches cut out to hold the spring compressed. Put that on the spring, open the vise. The spring is held compressed, it can't go anywhere. It's not going to slip. It could fly out the pliers if you're doing the pliers, and you just locate the long leg into a little slot there, and the pin on the end of the spring into its little hole. Hold it in place and just pull off the spring's in place.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a nifty little tool, can be made in 5 minutes. And then the last thing is to put in your top lever pin. There we go. And finally, if you've got one that's tight, and to finally pull it up into its full position, so the slots are running north and south.
Mm-hmm.
Hold it in the vise and put your shoulder to it if you have to. That one will fit it better. Just the last. There we go. I think that's about right. Mm-hmm. Now, the next thing you can put in is the sears. Where you can put in the safety at this stage of the game. A safety thumb piece or safe button, the safety spring pin, and the pin that holds the spring to the safety button. Now, okay, the safe button or safe thumb piece, whichever you want to call it, goes in first. Put a little bit of oil on that. Place that through its slot from the top. Then a little pin, this little pin goes through a hole in the base of that thumb piece. Knock it over until it's somewhere around central. Then put the safety spring. You can't put this in wrong. There's only one hole for the screw to go in. Put that underneath that pin. Hold it in place. Get it located in its hole, and and screw it in place. It moves backwards and forward, click, click. That's all right now. And now you can put in your sears, because you've got your lever work in position, so you're not going to the sears are not going to get in your way in any form now. So you just put these in. You can't get these in wrong. They're left and right. Again, put a little bit of lubrication on, and then put them in so this little part on the inside, like a cutaway part, goes underneath the sear spring. You can't go, they just slide in, and you see I left these screws on, not fully screwed up, so that these will slide in, you see.
The sear spring screws are not tight, so there's no pressure on the sears.
That's right, there's no pressure on them. So these sears will just slide underneath the sear spring like that. Just lie there. Then you can locate, make sure your holes are lined up for the sear pin. And okay, get the same. This is the left, in from left to right. And here we go. See, you can put this pin in to make sure. And again, so you can see better. Turn it round. Hold the okay, same thing. It just stands above the side slightly. Now that's in. Now next thing is to tighten up your extractor, your sear springs, screws or pins. Okay, tighten those up fully. There we go. The next thing before you do any more, you can put in the cam. That just goes in a little hole in the front. It's a bit, there it goes. I thought it was a bit tight, but it isn't. Put its little screw in with it, into it, and tighten that up. Here we go. That one overturns a little bit, but that's all right. Now that's all finished. That's completely assembled. Now, before you can put it on the stock, you've got to put together your furniture, which consists of your trigger plate, trigger guard, 2 triggers, safe bar, and the safe bar pin and the trigger pin. Now, first of all, now this is the thing to look for. Don't put the triggers in the wrong slots. You'll be surprised the amount of guns that I've over the years that I've had in repair with the back trigger in the front trigger slot. So with the back, if you're looking at it from this view, your back trigger will go in what is the right-hand slot, which is actually the left-hand slot if you turn it round. And of course the back trigger is shaped so that your finger will fit on it on the side, the same with the front. They're inclined up, so they put the front trigger, the back trigger in first, then the front trigger, put in a bit of oil on the blades, of course, just a dab. You can line up the holes in the triggers with the pinhole in the box of the trigger plate. Then put the trigger pin in and in place. It'll go and screw it fully home. And when, make sure it's fully screwed on, because if you don't, it'll, the sear legs of the sears will foul on it, and there we go. The next thing to put in is the safe bar. This front end's curved upwards slightly, and that's done so that it locates on the back of the underbolt. I'm going to leave it, I'm not going to straighten it out because I'd have to bend it up again. Mm-hmm. So as long as I can get it back in position without difficulty, I'll do that. Now, it goes through a hole in the front of the front box of the trigger plate and just slides forward. It's pretty simple. Push it fully forward until the little slot in the back end kind of lines up with a hole in the rear box of the trigger plate, and then put in the pin that holds that. The next thing to put in is the trigger guard. Now, there's a threaded portion of the front which screws into a threaded hole in the front of the trigger plate. And just,
we might note here on this reassembly that this gun doesn't have trigger return springs in it.
Yeah, there is a, you'll see underneath between the two trigger blades, and just to the rear there's a little slot cut and a little like a countersink on the one side, and a screw hole through the bottom of the trigger plate. Now, this gun years ago was fitted, well, when it was made, was fitted with a little kind of a little tiny wiry two-arm trigger spring, and held with a little screw. Now, sometimes during the life of the gun, somebody's taken it out and lost it or robbed it. So, but the gun will operate well without it. It's just the purpose of this little trigger spring is to keep the trigger blades in constant touch with the ends of the sear tails. Okay, now that's the furniture complete. Now we can put the gun, we can put those two parts onto the stock now, because those are completely assembled. Now, before you assemble this, you can, if you wish, I always do, usually cock them. And I press down on the cocking lever and the hammer at the junction where they come together. Just push them down until it cocks. There we go. You'll hear them click into place. Okay, the next part, to putting it back together, the stock and action just more or less drops together. The sears go in a slot at the bottom, and it's all just drops into place. The next move is turn the guard slightly, push the safe lever, safe bar back, and lower your trigger plate into position. Now, you'll see if you're inside the wood, there's a cutout for this box here, and one for the rear part, and an area for the triggers, and there's a slot right through for this extension on the safe bar to go through. So carefully lower it in position, lower it down, and it should. Some are more difficult than that. You have to fiddle around with them a bit. This one just dropped into place. The next thing to put in is the trigger plate pin. Now, as I say, usually they're marked. In this case it isn't, because or they've got a smaller section at the bottom, In this case you can't mix them up because the thickness of the heads. The head on this pin that goes in the trigger plate is thicker than the one that holds the cover plate. Put that in place, and so when it's fully armed, the slots are running north and south on the action. The next one to put in is the breech pin. Now the breech pin, you can't mistake it for anything else. It's got a countersunk head, it's got a bit of a taper on it, and it goes underneath the top lever to fit a countersunk head. Screw that fully home, or screw it up tight. If you find it comes up tight and you can't really pull it, tighten it up anymore, hold the action in the vise, pull the lever over, put your turn screw in the slot and pull it up straight so it's north and south, running north and south again, and there you go. Now the next thing to put in is the hand pin. This is the one. This one goes from the back of the trigger plate right through to the end of the top strap. Again, that just pushes through and just these hand pins will overturn some, because over the years since the gun was made, the wood has shrunk, and so you can go another half turn, probably more. But if it does go like that and it overturns, make sure it doesn't stick through the end of the top strap and stop the safety operating. And screw that up to its fullest extent. If you do find it's interfering with the safety, you might have to just take a little bit off the top of that hand pin so it doesn't interfere with the safety. But keep that fully screwed up. Make sure the guard's fully screwed up, and it drops into a little slot cut for it at the back on the side of the stock. Turn that around, make sure it sits in this little hole. Then it's got the only screw in a gun. That is the only screw in a gun, the guard screw, because it's a wood screw. Every other, what you would call a screw, is a pin.
And what we call a machine screw in the United States, you're calling a pin.
That's right, that's
yes.
correct, yeah. You see, it's an ancient trade and it's ancient terminology. Okay, that's all level. Now, the last thing to put in to complete the assembly of the action is the cover plate. Some call it the bottom plate, but it's a cover plate because it covers the working parts. And it just taps into place. Now it's a tight fit. It's supposed to be, because it's got to keep out dirt, water and all kinds of things. And finally, put your cover plate pin in and tighten it up. Now, this might not be sitting down fully down, but by the time I've got this pin in and screwed up, it will be, because this will help to pull it down. Again, you can always use the vise just to hold it. It's your shoulder to it, and just pull it up. Yeah, pull it up straight so it's north and south like the other one. And you can just tap the plate carefully not to mark it, so when it's fully down you can feel it's level. And there we have a completely assembled Anson & Dilly Boxlock gun.
All right, that's the back half. Now
let's get on.
Let's put the barrels together. Not much work there.
The next thing now, we don't have much to put together with the barrels now. We've got 2 half extractors, and it's advisable to put a little drop of oil on those, on the 2 flat surfaces, and rub a bit on the legs and the top legs. Slide them in their holes. You can't get these in wrong. I suppose somebody could. Then put in the extractor stop pin and screw that fully home. Now that's the barrels assembly. Barrels assembled. Now the next thing we've got to put together is the forend and the ejector mechanism. Now we've got that's the forend iron, and we've got the 2 sides of the ejector mechanism, which can now there's a ejector box. There's a box, or a spring box in this case. The spring goes inside that, what's called a box, and lubricate the spring. Just give it put a drop of oil on it. That goes inside its little box. Then there's the ejector kicker. You can lubricate, put a little bit on there. That goes inside there's a tail there, goes inside the spring, and the ejector kicker part of it goes inside the box. That's the one side assembled, and the same goes for the other side. You can't get the parts, you can get the springs mixed up in one side or the other, but you can't put the kickers in the wrong side. Put that in there. Now, there we go. That's the ejector parts assembled. Now we've got to assemble these to the forend. Now you can't get them in the wrong side. It'll only fit one side or the other. You see, because if you said there's a flat side on that ejector kicker, that goes towards the inside, and there's a portion at the top of the box goes in a slot in the forend iron further back. I shall have to push them into place. I put the other side in, and get in there. There we go. Now, this is where we've got to be careful and do some pushing on the, I need a hammer so you can push them out with the end of a hammer. And you're holding a cloth over the top of them. I'm trying to get, I'm going to put these, or I'm trying to get in these this ejector system into the forend. It's an awkward thing to fit in because you're trying to get 2 little tags, you might call them, into a slot. I've pushed the kickers into place, kickers and the boxes and the springs into place. Now, all I have to do is put the little pin that holds them in position in place and line up the hole.
Here's
now,
the pin right here.
That's right. Now they just have to line that hole up. And put the little pin in for there we go. As you can see, it holds the away from the. Now the next thing is to cock the ejection. Hold the forend on and the. Okay. Now we haven't done that. We've got to push the kickers back into the cock position. That's one. That's two.
Okay. So now the ejectors are cocked.
It's cocked now. Make sure it's okay. That's fully cocked. Now, the next thing we've got to do is put the rest of the forend together. Now, we can put a dab of oil on this part on there, to keep it lubricated. Now, the next thing is to put in the snap. That's there. So that goes in front of the slot. Then put the wood on the, or the forend on into the wood, whichever. There we go. That's it. Now, the next thing you can put in is put in the pin, the diamond pin. There's a diamond in the wood here. It screws into that. Put that through, and screw it up fully. Fully screwed up. Next thing, you put the tailpipe in, and the screw that holds it goes in through this hole in the underside of the tube. Now, you've got to screw that up, tighten that up through the hole in the tube. It's fully screwed on. Then you can put in your Hansen rod and spring with lubrication on it, and screw that home. Now, what you can do is hold the end of the Hansen rod in the edge of the lead clams like that to hold it, and just screw up turn your forend until it's fully screwed up. There we go. Okay, there we go. That's fully screwed up. That's as far as it'll go. There's one thing I forgot to put in. Well, a lot of people forget to put them in. These little small wood screws that go in the back of the knuckle. You'll see a lot of guns with that screw. If it's this type of forend, without the screw. More modern guns don't have little screws in the bottom of the forend knuckle. There we go. Now we've got everything together. Stock and action, barrels and extractors, forend with ejector work. Now we can put the gun together and make sure it works. Having put it together, you've got to make it's advisable to make sure it works before you send the gun out. There we go. It works. Okay, there we go, Larry. Thank you. One finished gun and one happy customer, we hope.
Well, Jack, I think you could have done that with your eyes closed.